بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى من بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله عليكم. Shukran for viewing Fast and Fiqhious. Alright, so I just want to say, people, that I'm really grateful for all the support and the type of very encouraging messages that I have been receiving from people to do with the Fast and Fiqhious series. So shukran once again. Wa barakallahu fikum. Right, we're going to take a look at a question today, and that is right, to do with remnants of food. Now, if a person, what this is, that if somebody has some food left in between their teeth, let's say, or something like this, and now they've begun their fast, and later on, maybe during the day or shortly after, whenever, maybe whilst just, I don't know, maybe moving their tongue about in their mouth, or just maybe doing nothing whilst they're talking, that piece, that remnant of food kind of comes loose and they just swallow it. What is the ruling on this? Right, so people, alright. Well, I've got some good news that it does not actually violate the fast. So alhamdulillah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this deen one of ease, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us that يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر, that Allah wants ease for you. He does not intend or want for you hardship or difficulty in this deen. Now, I'd just like to quote as well regarding this mas'ala, and that is and this is from the Jami', by the way. The Jami' is of Ibn Yunus. It's an amazing, Allahu Akbar. On a side note, this is an awesome text, people. It's voluminous and it's known as Al-Jami' li Masail al-Mudawwana wal-Mukhtalata by the legend Abu Bakr ibn Yunus as-Siqli, the Sicilian, who passes away in the 5th century. And he was a Maliki legend, really, one of the 4 people who Khalil relies upon in his understanding of the Mudawwana. And this book, the Jami', was actually called at times, I mean, it was so relied upon that the Malikiya, traditionally the school of Medina, referred to it almost as the Mushaf al-Malikiya, they almost called it at times. But anyway, coming back to this mas'ala here, he mentions this, transmitting from Ibn Habib, that وَإِذَا ابْتَلَعَ مَا بَيْنَ أَسْنَانِهِ مِنْ حَبَّةِ التِّينَ, and he mentions وَفُلْقَ وَنَحْوِهَا فَقَدْ أَسَاءَ وَلَا شَيْءَ عَلَيْهِ, and he says فَعَلَهُ سَهْوًا أَوْ عَمْدًا عَنْ جَهْلٍ أَوْ عِلْمٍ إِلَّا أَنْ يَأْخُذْ ذَلِكَ مِنَ الْأَرْضِ فَيَبْتَلِعَهُ فَيَلْزَمُهُ فِي سَهْوِهِ الْقَضَاء. Right. And he says وَفِي عَمْدِهِ جَاهِلًا أَوْ عَالِمًا الْقَضَاء وَالْكَفَارَةِ لِاسْتِخْفَافِهِ بِصَوْمِهِ لَا لِأَنَّهُ غِذَاء. Right, okay, now this mas'ala, and it's transmitted in various places as well, that if a person eats something accidentally, if he swallows what's between his teeth, and what they tend to say quite often is like a small pea size. That's the type that they give an example, that if it was the size of that, and they also mention, by the way, that if this was, what if it was something which was not if it was not food, for example. He mentions in the example it being like whether it's a piece of clay or a small piece of something that is put into his mouth and he swallows it. Ibn Habib mentions here that it does not, he says la shay alayhi, that he says that there's nothing upon him, he's not actually violated the fast, although he says if it's intentional, even if it's intentional, he mentions sahwan or amdan. That's for things that were not really food-like, but he was just playing, I don't know, he just had, whether it's a small piece of something in his mouth and he ends up swallowing it. Even if it's intentional, he says that it does not impact his fast. But he says if he does, however, if he picks this up, it wasn't already in his mouth. It wasn't like a shell of something that was already found in his mouth because it was part of the food. Or if this is something he picks up and he then eats and it's not food. So let's say somebody picks up a small, tiny, I don't know, piece of, let's say, clay, or even if it's a tiny pebble, somebody picks that up and they put it in their mouth and they end up swallowing it. He says if he does that intentionally, that he would make up the fast, and also potentially may have to give a kafara, not because it is food, but because he seems to be downplaying and belittling and denigrating the fast altogether. With that, Ibn Yunus also quotes Asbagh, who is another major legend within the school of Medina, who is transmitting from Ibn al-Qasim. He, especially speaking about these things that are not food. He mentions, he says, إنما كان من ذلك لا غذاء له في الجوف ولا انحلال مثل الحصى واللوز بقشرها فلا يقضي في سهوه ويقضي في العمد. He says, as to those type of things which are not actually nutrients, so they are, and he mentions whether it's the shell of something, like, let's say, I don't know, like it's some type of he's eating something and it's got shells with it, or something like this left in his mouth, or whether it is an actual pebble they mention an example of, or these type of things which are not actually food per se. If a person accidentally eats them, he does not have to make up that fast. If he does it intentionally, then here he transmits that he makes it up, because it seems to be that he's denigrating the concept of the fast. And this is what Abu Bakr ibn Yunus then quotes, that وَالْأَوَّلْ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْنَا, that the first, that it is not obligatory, that quote, to make up that fast if he did it unintentionally, if he just ate something that was just stuck in his mouth, that he says وَهُوَ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْنَا, that is what we like and we go with. وَهُوَ قَوْلُ سَحْنُونَ, and it is what Sahnun also transmits. Okay, so right, so just to clarify that once again, people, that if somebody eats something, they swallow the remnants of food that are like what the Maliki usually say ma bain al-asnan, that which is kind of trapped between the teeth and stuff like that, that does not violate the fast. Okay, and likewise, even if there was remnants of blood or traces of blood. Okay, so I'll quote to you Ibn Shas, who is once again a very popular scholar within the madhab, and his book Al-Jawahir Al-Thamina. Now he writes وَابْتِلَاعُ دَمٍ خَرَجَ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَسْنَانِهِ غَلَبَةً لَغُ, that he says that something small, he says traces of blood and stuff like that, which comes out from, let's say, between the teeth or something like this, and it just uncontrollably, it's not provoked, it's not, a person isn't trying to, as in they're not trying to swallow blood and stuff like that, that this is lagho, as in it's negligible and we don't really pay attention to it. And likewise, Ibn Qadah transmits that man wajada fi famihi daman wa huwa sa'im, and this is from Hattab, who his commentary on Mukhtasar Khalil, a very relied upon text within the madhab. Ibn Qadah states that man wajada fi famihi daman wa huwa sa'im famajjahu hatta biyad fala shay'a alayh, that Ibn Qadah, Ibn Abu Umar Ibn Qadah is stating the mas'ala that whosoever finds traces of blood in his mouth, or finds kind of that he has some blood in his mouth, not that he's profusely bleeding, but that he has some blood. So let's say you've brushed your teeth and you have some blood or whatever, some remnants in your mouth. He says وَهُوَ صَائِمٌ, and he's fasting, فَمَجَّهُ, so he continues to kind of like almost like chew upon it, etc., until حَتَّى بِيَضْ, until it becomes diluted with saliva, that فَلَا شَيْء عَلَيْهِ, that there is nothing upon him, as in it does not impact him in any way. And he mentions وَيُسْتَحَبُّ لَهُ غَسْلُ, although it is recommended to rinse out the mouth. So people, remnants of food or traces of blood, these things do not nullify the fast, for those of you that are wondering. So till next time, remember me in your du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.